Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. It's actually something that we'd hoped to have several months ago, but my speaker is so incredibly busy, it took us a while to even get on his schedule. So please join me in welcoming Dr. John Demartini to our program today. Welcome, Dr. Demartini.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this because I'm sure we're going to have a fascinating discussion. So Dr. John Demartini is a human behavior specialist, international best-selling author, educator, founder of the Demartini Institute, and the author of 40 books that have been translated into 38 languages. He has developed a series of solutions applicable across all markets, sectors, and age groups. He is presented alongside the ranks of people like Sir Richard Branson, Donald Trump, Stephen Covey, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Steve Wosniak, and others. He has also been featured in a number of documentaries, including The Secret, The Opus, The Compass, and Overfed and Undernourished, alongside celebrities such as Hugh Jackman, Seal, Ringo Starr, and Bob Geldof. So, oh my gosh, I'm just, it's a holy schmoly. Welcome again, Dr. Demartini.
Thank you again for having me, and I'm looking forward to this interview.
Great. Well, what I always like to start with is to find out how it is that my guests got to where they are today and how they discovered that this really is their passion in life. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
We'll do the brief version of that. I was learned challenged as a child.
Okay.
I had speech impediments, learning challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I was told by my first grade teacher I would never be able to read or write, never be able to communicate, never probably amount to anything, never go very far in life. I ended up being a high school dropout. I left school at 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Was a street kid until 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
Hitchhiked out to California and then down to Mexico and off to Hawaii to go surfing, and nearly died at 17, almost 18.
Mm-hmm.
Met a gentleman named Paul C. Bragg
Mm-hmm.
one night at a recreation hall, who was a guest speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and inspired me to want to overcome my learning problems and someday learn how to read and become intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the night that I had a dream to do that and also become a teacher, because I assumed a teacher was somebody who was intelligent.
Right.
And lo and behold, 49 years later, I'm still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been speaking and teaching very early, since 18, with whoever and anybody who would listen.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
That grew to significant proportions over time. And I just do it every single day, 7 days a week.
I love it. And clearly you have a message that resonates and you have overcome so much. I always wonder, do you want to go back to that first grade teacher and say, look what I've become?
Well, I would love to thank her, actually.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because she
if
motivated
I hadn't had
you.
the void,
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't had that void, I might not have had that turning point.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't have any. At the time, it seemed to be true. I couldn't read. I couldn't make sense out of things. I had speech and problem. I had to work very diligently on that speaking and reading capacity. But once I learned I could do it and overcome it, I became neurotically dedicated to reading and speaking. And so I've done up to 426 speeches in a year to practice.
Right. I love it.
Constantly doing what I.
And it is one of those things that what we're told as children so much shapes our lives. And many times whoever is telling us whatever it is, they mean well. They want to save us. They want to protect us. Little girls are told, "Oh, you can't do math, so don't even try. Don't be crushed." But all of these various things, and obviously the messages that you were told as a youngster, and those voices, of course, get stuck in our head and become the voices of when we're adults. So overcoming or proving them wrong or following them leads us throughout our life, and so how do you work with people? Because I know that human behaviors is obviously, what you focus on, to accept those voices and then maybe, build on them, learn from them, all of those various things.
Well, we sometimes subordinate to outer authorities instead of becoming the author of our own lives.
Okay.
And when we finally wake up and realize that instead of being second at somebody else's expectation, why not be first at being our own? And giving ourselves permission to stand out, not fit in, and be an unborrowed visionary instead of borrowed visionary. I educate people on how to do that.
Right.
And how to take whatever anybody has said and put it into context and use it to your advantage. We have control over our perceptions, decisions, and actions in life. And we don't have control over the world outside, but we have control over our perception, decisions, and actions over it. And so we can take any situation in our life and turn it into opportunity if we ask the question, how specifically is whatever this is, how is it helping me fulfill what is deeply meaningful and important to me? If you ask that question, there's always an answer. You can link anything to anything. And you can take a crisis and turn it into a great opportunity if you ask that question. So how specifically is whatever's happening to me today helping me fulfill what's most deeply meaningful to me, what I feel my mission and service to the world is? And if you do that, I turned that challenge into a great opportunity because I turned it into the idea that I had a void and I had a stronger drive to want to learn than the rest of the kids, that they took it for granted, which allowed me to catch up with them eventually and then exceed.
Right.
And so it's if we choose to see it and become victims of history instead of masters of destiny, it's not because of it, it's because of our perception, decisions, and actions around it.
Right. And I love that master of destiny, because I think so many times we do accept what others have said of us, and we accept our limitations, we accept our fate, all of those various things. And, and instead of, as you said, thinking, okay, wait a minute, I am the one who decides, and for good or bad, but I love that you work with people to really show them, as you said, how to be outstanding as opposed to just, going along with everybody else.
Well, I had a funny thing happen. I guess you could say it wasn't funny, but it was funny when I look back at it. When I first started to try to go back to school at age 18, I first had to take a GED because I never finished high school.
Right.
And I guessed and passed a test. Guessed.
You
Literally
had
just
so
closed my
much
eyes.
life knowledge, I think.
Well, I guess I was street kid smart, but I just guessed. I didn't even know how to read half the questions. And I just closed my eyes and filled in a dot with my intuition. And somehow miraculously passed this thing. And I thought, okay, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I thought when I went to school in the classes, it was the same thing was going to happen. But in my first grade that I got in trying to go back to school, I got a 27.
Oh.
And you needed a 72 to pass. So I literally went shrunk. And I could hear my first grade teacher whispering that voice. And I remember running to my car and then driving home slowly with tears in my eyes and thinking this whole fantasy about being a teacher is just delusion. Better go back to surfing.
Right.
I know how to stand on a surfboard. And I was curled up in a fetal position in a living room at my parents' house that day after this. And my mom came home from shopping and she saw me there. She said, what happened, son?
Right.
What's wrong? And I said, Mom, I blew the test. I guess I don't have what it takes. I guess I'll never be able to read and write and communicate, never amount to thing, never go very far in life. And she paused. And finally, she said something, put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, son, whether you become a great teacher and travel the world like you dream, whether you return to Hawaii and ride giant waves, which you've done, or return to the streets and panhandle as a homeless kid, I just want to let you know that your dad and I are going to love you no matter what you decide to do. When she said that, I needed to hear that.
Right.
And my hand went into a fist. And I looked up and I saw the vision that I saw, which is painted in my office today in Houston. I saw this vision of me speaking in front of 1 million people. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading, studying, and learning. I'm going to master this thing called teaching, healing, and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love across the planet. And I got up and I hugged my mom and I went into my room and I got a dictionary out. And I made a decision that I was going to memorize 30 words a day from the very beginning of that dictionary until I had that dictionary memorized. And I spent 30 words a day. My mom would test me on 30 words, pronunciation, spelling, meaning, and in a sentence. And I would work on 30 words a day and I would master 30 words a day. And within a short period of time, I was starting to now comprehend more words. And I started passing school. I started excelling in school. And my vocabulary was growing more than the average person within a year. And I started having classes, people asking me questions, which was the most inspiring thing in the world to experience. And off I went. And I never stopped since. And I've been blessed. And I read every day. I write every day. And I teach every day of my life.
You know, and it's interesting. I think reading really is so incredibly important. And I don't care what you read, you know, People magazine, it just anything. I went through some health issues, and one of the things, and ended up having a lot of surgery, and the anesthesia basically fried my brain. And I remember my doctor coming in and saying, I don't care what you read, but you have got to start reading. And she said, that is going to be what helps kick your brain back into gear. You know, and it was hard. I mean, I could not focus. I mean, even People magazine, you know, short little articles, I just couldn't. And then we discovered one of the issues was that all of it had actually changed my vision. So, you know, you get glasses, that kind of helped a little bit. But yeah, just going back to reading. And you know, I remember talking with people at other points and saying, what are you reading every day? And posts on Facebook, no, that doesn't count. But, you know, just reading. So, you know, fiction, nonfiction, something to make those gray cells function.
Well, what's interesting is anytime you pursue challenges that inspire you, you maximize brain function.
Right.
The medial prefrontal cortex comes alive. The executive center comes alive. And your awareness and potential expand. And your vision is awakened. And you're inspired spontaneously when you're doing something that is truly high in your values. And whenever you're learning there and reading about that, it is important to prioritize what you read, prioritize what you say, prioritize what you do, prioritize in every capacity. Because when you stop and think about it, you only have a finite period of time on the planet. And if you don't prioritize and decide how you want it and fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day tends to fill up with low priority distractions that don't, and it devalues you. So you want to read the most inspiring, most meaningful, most productive things that you're engaged in, that you can't wait to study and learn, and grow your vocabulary so you're most articulate to be able to communicate effectively with people and engaging people, helping them do what they want so they help you do what you want. And this is more fulfillment. So reading is a very vital component, or at least listening to new words and growing vocabularies do give us advantages.
Right. You know, and I read a lot of business books, obviously, because of the podcast. And excuse me, it really is, to me, it's just interesting, but it really does kind of get those juices going. Or you mentioned listening. One of the things that I do for about the first 30 minutes of every day is I listen to recaps of business books or podcasts about business, all of those things. Again, something to get your brain going.
Yes. I think that our greatest capacity is using our brain. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's, if you're not using it, you lose it. If you don't use your muscle, you lose your muscles, they atrophy. Mm-hmm. If you don't use your bones, they undergo osteoporosis. Mm-hmm. If you don't use your brain, and not just any part of the brain, but specific ones, running your emotional drama activates your amygdala and subcortical areas, but doesn't develop the executive function.
Right.
But actually pursuing challenges that inspire you and solving problems that mean something to you, and then doing something practical to make a difference in the world, all of those develop the forebrain, the parietal region, and allow you to maximize a potential that you don't even know you may have. And I think that that's a crucial component on a daily basis.
Right.
If we will tackle it, even with senile dementia, Alzheimer's, when they have tau and amyloid proteins that are building up and lymphatic systems that are congesting, they found out when people pursue challenges that inspire them, they can reactivate some of that, and it helps the lymphatic system drain away some of the proteins more effectively. It reduces the stress levels, and it prolongs the natural approach of their minds and slows down that process of degeneration. So I'm a firm believer of filling your day with high priority actions that inspire you, that can be of service and solutions to helping people. I really believe that we're designed to be a contribution and make a difference in contributing to people's lives with services. That's an important part of our fulfillment.
Right. Yeah, it is, when we do something that helps others, and I don't care if it's just smiling at somebody through the drive-through and they might have not been smiled at all day, or doing something, major that I don't know if it's a dopamine hit. I mean, it makes us feel better too. And of course we see the exact opposite when we're the grumpy, the cranky, all of those various things. That just, that was one of the things that I really focused on when I was healing, was getting the toxicity, maybe is the easiest way, out of my life, the grumpy, cranky people, not reading, the news stories even that were negative, all of those various things. And I think that, and still, I think that is a big part of staying physically and mentally healthy is, now we can't be Pollyanna, but we can focus on the positive as opposed to the negative.
Or we can also do this. We can also see, instead of avoiding them, we can actually see what might be initiating that and asking new sets of questions to make their unconscious fully conscious of the opportunities that are at hand, and liberating them from their own burdens and inspire them and transform their lives and change the direction of their trajectory. And I love doing that. So I found that you can't escape everyone. But
I know we can't hide, because then that defeats the purpose too, right?
You can transform them. But there's a wisdom in prioritization of the people. But at the same time, there's a wisdom of caring enough about humanity to make a difference by serving people. And I try to find solutions to humanity's issues, because sometimes I find that the reason they're grumpy is because they have unrealistic expectations on themselves to live in somebody else's values, or on others to live in their values.
Right. Oh, we might have frozen on our video. I think it's so important. Oh, there we are. It is, as you said, it's in living our own values. And that's one of the things that you work with people on, is determining what the heck those values are. And so talk to us more about that.
Well, I've been studying values for about 44 years and now teaching for 49. And one thing that I feel pretty certain about is that each individual at any moment lives by a set of priorities that are unique to them, like fingerprint. And it's based on their voids in life and the experiences they have in life that decide what the values are, what's fulfilling to them. And knowing what that is is crucial to have clarity about the objectives that they have in life. Tell me what your highest value is, and I'll tell you what you spontaneously are inspired to do. Mine is teaching, so you don't have to worry about, you never have to feel betrayed. If you expect me to teach, I won't let you down. If you expect me to garden or to cook or to drive, I'm going to let you down.
Right.
I'm not doing that. So I learned a long time ago that if you fill your day with the highest priority things, your life is more fulfilled, and you delegate the lower ones and give other opportunities to other people to do the things that you want to delegate. I don't do anything but research, write, and teach. Pretty well, that's it. The rest of it's delegated out. So caring enough about yourself and others to find out what that highest value is, and structuring your life and helping other people fulfill their life by doing that, liberates you and them from unnecessary burdens. And so, finding out, on my website, drdemartini.com, I have a complimentary, private, free 30-minute questionnaire to help an individual really look and narrow down what exactly is valuable to them. Because a lot of people, if you ask them what their values are, they'll tell you social idealisms. They'll tell you their mothers, fathers.
We want to solve world hunger. We want to, that's great.
All that stuff that has nothing to do with what their life demonstrates. I'm interested in what your life demonstrates. I'm interested in how you fill your space, your proxemics. I look at how you spend your time. I look at what energizes you. What is you spending your money on?
Right.
What is it that you're most organized in? What are you most disciplined on? What are you thinking about, visualizing, and affirming about how you would love your life that shows evidence of coming true? What is it you want to converse with other people about most? What is it that inspires you and brings tears to your eyes? And what's common to the people who inspire you? What is it that are the most consistent, persistent goals you have that you have evidence of coming true? And what is it you spontaneously want to learn about? And they indicate what your life really demonstrates as valuable. And then you can start prioritizing and structuring your life around that and liberate yourself from a tremendous amount of, I guess you could say, disorder and dis-ease.
Right.
Because I really believe that everything that's going on in our life is a feedback mechanism to guide us back to authenticity, back to what we really value, what we really want to make a contribution in. And when people find that and they start prioritizing their life to live by that, a huge shift occurs in their life. They end up with more self-worth, more self-valuation, more income, more contribution. I mean, there's just more leadership capacities. Their whole life unfolds beautifully when they live by priority. Right. I don't know how to describe it, but if you don't fill your day with high priority actions, it's going to fill up with low priority distractions. And any area of your life you don't empower, people are going to overpower you. You're a victim of your being over-empowered because you're not empowering yourself.
Right. How hard is it when you're working with people to determine these values for them to really think about what they feel as opposed to what they think other people think they should be doing? That kind of comes back to those little voices, when we were young. It was, you need to be doing this. I'm of the generation, I'm right at the very end of baby boomers. So, I was not so much in the generation of little girls should grow up to be wives, nurses, teachers. And so those expectations, but there was still some of it that was there. I mean, I had friends that said, they went to college to get their MRS degree. And I'm like, what? But, we get so caught up in what we think others think we should do and be. So how do you strip that away to get to someone's true personal feelings?
If you ask them what their values are, they'll tell you their social idealisms and injected values.
Right.
That's why I created the value determination process that I have, to filter past that, to look at what their life demonstrates. Look at what they do, not what they say. Right. Because their actions are more powerful than their words. What you do spontaneously. If you ask somebody, what do you do spontaneously that nobody has to remind you to do, that you intrinsically do, that you love doing, that you're inspired by? People go, I don't know. Right. But look carefully. I guarantee I've been doing it 44 years almost. I'm absolutely certain you can narrow that down with these 13 questions.
Wow.
I've been doing it for years.
I love it. I didn't have the opportunity to do that. So I'll definitely go to your website and do that. And at the end, we'll give the information again so that people can do that. part of why we wanted to have you on earlier this year is because of the pandemic and how, people have dealt well with it, have not dealt well with it, all of these various things. And I think one of the biggest things that we saw and unfortunately continue to see is that people were not financially prepared to be able to survive any of this. And so, how do you kind of work with people so that they, because it's not just, gee, we want to, feed the world. Let's be honest, we have to have money. And so how do you work with people's mindsets so that they create personal wealth and really develop this financial survival?
They transcend the illusions that have been misfed to them about wealth, first of all. Mm-hmm. I'd like to elaborate, if I could, on that.
Yes.
We have personas, masks, facades that we sometimes display. Mm-hmm. A pride, self-righteous mask, a shame, a self-wrongous mask, if that's a word. We exaggerate ourselves, we minimize ourselves, we puff ourselves up, we deflate ourselves. And then we have our true self, the authentic individual, that's the true self-worth in between the high and low self-esteem polarities. Whenever we exaggerate ourselves, we tend towards a narcissistic projection of our values onto other people and expect others to live in our values.
Right.
Whenever we are in altruistic mode, we tend to inject other values and try to live in their values. Now, when we try to live in other people's values, we give away our profits because we're sacrificing ourselves for other people with altruism. When we go into narcissism, we don't listen to their needs. And we eventually find out that that's humbling and brings us back down. The two, when we're altruistic, we eventually get frustrated enough to stand up. I deserve more than that. When we're narcissistic, we eventually get humbled and go, hey, I'm not listening to my needs, these people's needs. So all the symptoms in business are trying to get us into authenticity, where we have sustainable, fair exchange with equanimity within ourselves and equity between ourselves and other people. That's all those symptoms are trying to reveal to us. So the mastery of money is the mastery of self, because you don't retain or acquire income, and you don't value enough to save and invest income unless you're in states of equanimity and equity. So the business world is actually training people on how to value themselves, value other people with equity, and have sustainable fair exchange. When we do that, we end up having a demand for our supply. We end up meeting people's needs, and we end up now making profits. Because that includes not just the customer, but also the employee and the shareholders and the ecology, for that matter. The moment we master that skill, we have prosperity begin. Then we have to realize that, based on entropy laws, that if you don't take a portion of whatever you earn and set it aside and buy assets that accumulate and appreciate in value, you will be working your whole life for money as a slave instead of having it work for you as you're its master. So if a person doesn't structure that, automate it, where it's electronically done, their life is going to attract unexpected bills that will keep eroding entropically the potential for wealth building. But once they force that savings in and it's automated electronically, and go and care about focusing on serving people, and set it up into trenches of money where you're paying off your investments, you're putting it in your taxes, you're putting it in your lifestyle, you're putting it in your vacation, you're putting it in your education, you're putting it in return, you're putting in depreciation. Once you structure it and just have it set up and focus on service, you automate your wealth building. I've taken thousands of people and helped them automate their wealth building, and go, I can't believe this, what happens now that it's structured. But you don't value it. See, we sometimes raise it. Our hierarchy of values dictates our financial destiny, and the finances move from those who value it least to those who value it most in society. If you don't have a value on wealth building, it's not going to occur, because you're not going to structure and bring order to it. And it automatically goes where it's most organized and ordered. So I just tell people to have it automated and structured.
Pull it out of your paycheck, do whatever,
Have it automated. So it's not even a question, unexpected bill. And watch what happens. Because when you manage money wisely, you receive more money to manage. It's very simple. I started out at 27 years old. I was a lot in debt, just got out of school, this kind of thing. And I got asked 10 questions. 10 questions that were very powerful. What were my current assets? My total assets? What were my current total liabilities? What was my current total net worth? What is the actual amount of money I want passively annually that to live on passively to define my financial independence? What is my current capacity to earn money? What interest rate can I earn with my knowledge of investing? What's the current inflation rate? What's the total net worth that I need with that amount of interest that I'm earning minus the inflation rate to give me the amount that I want passively annually? And then what's my shortfall between my current net worth and that? And then what is the strategy I have to go and get that?
Right.
And
how do you make up that
grounds
difference?
people. Yeah, then what's the ground here? How do I plan on doing it? Because if I don't have a plan on doing it, I got a fantasy and it ain't going to happen.
There's not the money trees out there.
Yeah. So once I structured that, I started saving $200 a month, $50 a week, $10 a day, $1 an hour. And then 3 months later, I made it 300. And 3 months later, I made it 500. 3 months later, I made it 750. 3 months later, I made 1,000. And every 3 months, I raised it 10%. Till it was 2, and then 4, and then 8, and then 16, and 32, and 64, and 128, and 256,000 a month. And my business managed, when I managed it wisely and structured it, I started attracting business globally. And it was like when I managed wisely, I attracted more business. Business goes where it's most organized.
Right.
I can tell people to do it, and I've taken thousands of people through it, and their lives change financially the second they do.
Right. And I think it comes back to, as you were saying, value. I mean, so many people kind of have this perception that wealth is bad, and that wanting wealth makes you a bad person. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful I'm a bad person. That's so inspiring to know I'm a bad person. Well, I don't think, the idea that to label wealth good or bad is foolish.
Right. It's not.
Wealth
it's just
good or
there.
bad. It's what you do with it. It's what you do with it.
Right.
There was a book of wealth by Hubert Hal Bancroft, which I was blessed to get a copy of. There's only 250 copies, original copies made, and I got one of the copies. And it was handed out to the wealthiest people in the world. And I was able to get it on auction. And one of the things that it said on there very clearly is that by divine providence and human sovereignty, the extremely wealthy individuals, organizations, or institutions for the last 7,000 years have been, this is going back to the Sumerians and beyond, have been those individuals that felt that they were by divine providence and human sovereignty destined to serve vast numbers of people. If you don't have a caring heart to want to serve people, don't expect to be wealthy.
Right.
I've met a lot of billionaires and a lot of centimillionaires. I don't know of anybody, none, that somehow didn't start with service orientation. Ultimately, even Bezos is one of the wealthiest and amongst. He's doing something that serves people, or he wouldn't be in business.
Right.
So you have to have a caring heart to want to make a difference and serve people. I made a comment at a church one time, and they stopped the place really cool for a second. I said, if you're poor, it's because you don't care about humanity. If you care about humanity, you're going to find a way of serving humanity and fulfill the needs of people and get out of your own worry about your own willowing, wadding pity party and go and serve people. When you do, you attract opportunities and money income, and then you don't have these anxieties you think you are destined to. And then the second one is to raise the standard of society, to contribute to investing in inspiration that raises the standard of every market. And then also to realize to transcend the illusions of good and bad associated with money. The truth is that the wealthiest institutions told you it's more blessed to give than to receive, but they received it.
Right. Yeah. They have to have accepted that.
Yeah. So wake up, because if it was more blessed to give than to receive, then what happens is the people receiving are cursed. No, it's more blessed to have sustainable, fair exchange. That's a transaction that's fair, because that's the one you're going to want to continue to do. If you get something for nothing, you feel awkward, and they're not going to want to keep doing it. And if you give something for nothing, they feel awkward, they're not going to want to do it. Nature doesn't want to have out of exchange. They want fair exchange. That's in every relationship, equity serves. So mastering that is the truth about money. And living in the fantasy that it's one side or the other and putting a moral hypocrisy on it is undermine people from the great abundance that this world has to offer. And that abundance comes from the abundance of being able to serve an unlimited number of people if you care about people.
Right. Yeah. You look at the very wealthy, And for the most part, that really is, Bezos, Branson, they had the vision when they were starting out. And Amazon, is probably one of the best examples of that. We've all heard the story. He started in his garage, but he started the business so that people could get books easier, but he also knew, I have to make money in order to continue this and in order to grow it. If you give it all away, well, then it stops. You do have to have that make money part in order to continue. And that's what so many people, I think, get confused about. Now, I love the fact that, I think it was, I saw this earlier this week, Shaquille O'Neal, the big in many ways basketball player, who he was talking about his wealth and his children. And he said, much to their dismay, I am a millionaire. My children are not. And his concept is they need to figure out that whole cycle, and not just now, he's not going to let them live on the street, things like that. But it really is, it's not just given to you. You have to earn it. And then it's what you do with it that continues the legacy, whatever it is that we want to call it.
Well, we have rags to riches to rags in 3 generations, as an old proverb.
Right.
My son, I have no problem putting him on the street. I told my son, he's going to work.
Right.
And so I told him he's on the street for the day. So he went out and lived in his car for a day. Next day he came in and says, "Can I get a job working for you?" And I said,
he decided that was not what he wanted to do, right?
So that's not a bad thing. I lived on the streets. I'm where I am today. I'm very fortunate today because I did. So I don't want to say that that's a bad thing. That could be one of great contributions. But yeah, if you give people no accountability, responsibility, dignity, or productivity with money, you destroy them. And so you make them entitled and socially inept. But what I think that is wise is to give them an experience. I watched a video one time on a very wealthy gentleman, and he said that he made his son work in the factory that he had, and worked at minimum wage and worked himself up through every job in the company before he handed over the company. And he says, and if he doesn't know all those people's reality and doesn't comprehend those people and understand what it takes to run the company, there he's not prepared for the company. And that gentleman took on and passed on. And so they will build the company and take the generation to the next level. And so what we do is we don't realize how important it is to create a void, an essential drive in people to go and serve. And I'm a firm believer. Now I have all my kids, they all have savings programs, they all investment programs. They all know how to do it, and they're doing it. And my estate, it goes to a prize. It doesn't go to the kids. There's a portion that goes to the kids, but most of it goes to a prize, like a Nobel Prize. And so what's interesting is they're set it up where automatically, only to the degree that they've served and they've saved and they've invested, do they actually get access to anything from the estate. So if they haven't done anything that's meant anything,
then they get nothing.
They get nothing. It's that simple. So they are amazingly interested in doing some work.
I bet. And I remember years ago, a friend of mine had at that point young children, and now they are young adults. And at a very young age, they started earning money. They did chores and they got an allowance. It wasn't just, hey, you got money. It was you did these things. And one was, he was a very enterprising little guy. He started selling stuff on eBay when he was like 6 years old. He would go with his grandmother to garage sales. And his big thing, he figured out really young, was to buy toys that were still in the boxes and then resell them, and so he might spend $1 and resell it for 10. That was great. But his parents very early on said, okay, here's what you're doing with that money. You get X% to spend. You get X% that you tithe to their church. And then X% went into savings. And he learned very early on what that value of money was and how, and so he was giving back with his tithing. And usually he would give back more, if he was told, okay, 10%, he'd say, okay, it's been a good month, I'm going to do 20%. And same thing with, I'm going to put even more into savings. I bought something fun, but I'm going to put more into it. And it's incredible to look at him now and to see the wonderful young adult that he has become because of that mentality. And and he learned very early on, okay, savings was good. It's okay. I don't have to spend all of it. I can save it. And then I was just fascinated with that. I thought that was such a wonderful way to be raising those children.
Well, if many people, when they have an increase in income, they increase their outcome, their outflow. And so they go and live off vicariously other people's brands and spend their money on consumables that depreciate in value and wonder why they can't get ahead. I always say that if you value yourself, you buy appreciables. If you devalue yourself, you buy consumables. It's a very simple process because then you think, well, those will make me important instead of you're important and you're going to invest and you're going to have your money working for you. I'm a firm believer in having financial independence so you can do what you love, not because you have to, but because you love to. I teach. I don't have to teach. I could hang out on my ship here and have millions of dollars coming in every year doing nothing. So that's not, I love teaching because that's what I love doing. I love using my mind, brain. But the thing is that by doing that, you now have command over your philanthropic objectives. And money without meaning leads to debauchery, but money with meaning leads to philanthropy. And finding meaning in what you do and doing something that inspires you, that makes a difference in the world, is a very important component of mastery of life.
Right. I've had some fun discussions in the last couple months with some of my friends about, Elon Musk and Richard Branson and their space programs. And, they're like, oh my gosh, this is such a waste of money. Can't believe they're spending that. And I say, okay, first of all, they earned it. They should be able to do what they want with it. And they are both very philanthropic, so it's not that they're not doing that. But then when you look at everything that kind of flows down from that. So, you develop a rocket ship. You employ how many thousands of people, you're giving them, as you were saying, you're showing, you're giving them the value, so they're able to use their minds to do whatever it is. And whether it's just, putting that little widget on there or developing the software, all of those various things, you're giving them the opportunity to be successful. Granted, I'm a geek. I think, the space travel is a very cool thing, but, they took that money and are using it to help others. And does it seem frivolous? Maybe, but there's so many things that are coming from that.
Well, everybody has a different set of values and no one's right or wrong for their values. And they're going to spend their money according to the hierarchy of their values. And so somebody that doesn't see a value in that doesn't mean anything. It just means they don't value it.
They just don't see value in it.
But the reality is that there is stages. We're in what is called a primary stage of the solar system. We're in the stage where we're taking hydrogen and creating helium out of it. And the main sequence stage is called a main sequence stage. It eventually goes into a red giant phase. When it does, the solar system expands and Earth is going to be cindered. It's going to be non-habitable. And so if we don't develop a space traveling system in the future, we're going to be cindered. So the reality is it's part of our frontier of exploration. And if we look very carefully, we've been progressively doing it. We started out walking, we then got a bicycle, then we got a car or a buggy or a horse, and then we started flying, and then, so it's an evolution, a development of an expanded awareness and potential. There's an overview effect that people that go up into space and look back at the Earth, they fall in love with the Earth, and they're not judgmental and they're not local. And people that live in a small little area never get to explore anything else, are more likely to be fundamental and black and white thinkers. So the more universal the belief, the more loving the perspective, the more humanitarian the cause. And this is part of that journey. And so I'm a firm believer. I was there with Richard Branson at Spaceship One in 2004 at the Mojave Desert when they launched Spaceship One. I was one of the funders. And I'm a very firm believer that has more significance than what we realize, because I don't think they just had William Shatner at 90 years old.
I know. I just geeked out over that. That just really,
Yeah, he went up there with Bezos. And when he came back, he was just overwhelmed with unbelievable inspiration. He says, I've never experienced anything like that. And the mindset that comes back from that is philanthropic and contributing to human beings.
Right.
So I don't think that, I always say, whatever we're not up on, we're down on. And then we just haven't looked and asked the right questions to see and discover the magnificence of all of the people's values out there. Everybody has a place.
Right.
No one's right or wrong with it. It's just everybody has a place. Even the villains out there have a place, because there's forensic scientists and military. There's all kind of people that have jobs because of it. So if we look at the big picture, we realize that there's a reason for all those. But I'm definitely a believer that advancing our astronomical and astrophysics and our mathematics and our understanding and our energy use and understanding foreign systems and life out there, all those will be very valuable for our survival in the future.
Right. Yeah. People who say, going to the moon, what a waste. And, what did I say, but think of how many things came from that. Velcro, I think, is probably one of the, for some reason that always sticks in my brain. But yeah, there were so many other things that came from that, and like the space station. And I don't know how we got off on this subject, but, they're learning how to grow things in conditions that are very different, because, as you said, at some point we're going to have to start doing this. We will have depleted our resources, whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's 50, whether it's 5,000. That's always one of those things. But yeah, it's we have to start doing those things because we're going to have to. So why not start doing them now?
Well, the thing is it is going to be essential. But it's also inspiring.
Right.
I was at NASA recently. I was working on Special Missions Project back in 1987 for biological research in space. And I didn't pass all the tests and didn't get selected because I was having difficulty following authority. But at the same time, I was very interested in biological research, and I still do it to this day. I'm actually working on that right now in physiology. Cool. But I'm very fascinated by biological research. How does life begin? Where does it begin? How does it happen? And how is the creation or evolution or combination thereof manifest on the planet? And these questions, by going to Mars and finding a biological remnant from a water sample there, and we might discover the universality of this, and that might have a change in framework of our thinking process. So those are all very important philosophical questions. Instead of living in an Aristotle, Ptolemaic, geocentric world that we once had, that's influencing a lot of philosophy today still. So yeah, there's an essential component of that. And I'm a firm believer in expanding awareness and potential that serves human beings. I've been working with people 49 years, and I'm absolutely certain that people spontaneously want to expand their sphere of awareness and influence. And it's a normal thing.
Right.
And I don't know anybody that wants to go, I want to know less. I want to be less. I want to have less. I want to, they have a natural tendency to want to expand. And so anything that allows us to expand our awareness and potential in whatever field it is going to give us a competitive advantage. And believe it or not, from a national perspective, if we don't, other nations are going to get ahead.
Right.
And
I mean, we saw that back in the 60s.
It keeps us evolving. And it forces us. So having that competition is healthy, because it makes us go, well, what else can we do? And it forces us to be creative and stretch our minds. So I'm a firm believer that whatever inspires somebody deserves to be pursued.
Right. And let's be honest, it can be something small. But if I have a friend who raises iris flowers, and so the beauty that she creates, to me, is incredibly important. And so it comes back to those values and all of those things. And there's really there's not different levels.
There's no human being that doesn't contribute. Right. Rose Kennedy, I have a copy of her mission statement that she had in a book. I was given one of the Kennedy family's books. And it said very clearly that I dedicate my life to raising a family of world leaders. That was her mission.
Right. And so, danged if she didn't do that. And then, of course, the future generations.
Yeah. So I'm not interested in what it is. I'm interested in just extracting it out of an individual to find out what they're inspired intrinsically to do. So they don't require motivation and rhetorical persuasion from an outside, herd to get to make a difference in the world. But whatever that is, it's meaningful. It's to them, and that counts. And I don't care what that is. I mean, I know somebody that wanted to develop Crayolas as their own form of Crayolas and create a competitive market to Crayola. And that was their dream. Right. But it doesn't matter. What matters is what inspires somebody that makes them where they can't wait to get up in the morning and be of service to people. So people can't wait to get the service, and they exemplify what's possible as a perseverant, driven human being doing something that makes a difference.
Right. And unfortunately, I think especially with the pandemic, one of the things that we have seen is there's been a lot of depression. There's been a lot of crisis fatigue, all of these various things. And I think it's getting better because we're out and about more and doing things. I mean, those first couple months when we were in lockdown, and obviously it varied from country to country, but, I think that was hard on people. I mean, I don't think we've seen it was very hard on people. So how do we avoid mentally kind of that fatigue?
Well, I always say depression is a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy that you're addicted to about how it should have been, would have been, could have been. Something other than reality. I don't find that very productive. I find it very productive to stop and ask what's happening now and how do I use this to serve, to be of great service to it. The people I know that did extraordinary things during the early phases of COVID asked themselves a different question. Right.
How can I help?
How is whatever's happening right now? How can it help me fulfill my mission of service?
Right.
I had the biggest year I ever had. From this, because I asked a new set of questions.
And it came back to, you still had to be making money. I think, probably a great example would be restaurants, that were completely shut down. People could not come in. But they figured out how they could still serve their customers, whether it was,
absolutely.
Uber, all those things. And so that's what's going to be interesting going forward to see how that continues. I really laugh at people who say, I can't wait for it to get back to normal. And I'm like, first of all, okay, there's no normal, you need to understand there's not a normal. But I honestly would not want to go back to the way things were in, say, January of 2020. It's not that was bad. It was just, that was then, and now look at the things that we are doing and saying. I mean, I do almost no in-person networking anymore for a variety of reasons, but it has allowed me to expand my networking worldwide. And I probably would not have done that, at least to the degree of, without the pandemic. I mean, it was like, okay, we're going to live on Zoom now, and I'm going to talk to people from around the world. I was telling somebody that the other day. She said, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this to end because it's been so horrible. And I said, I talked to somebody in Italy today. And so it really was, it's what we make of it.
It has nothing to do with the world out there. William James said, the father of modern psychology, said it's the greatest discovery of his generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. You change your perception, you change reality. I'm a firm believer of asking different set of questions because the questions make you conscious of unconscious information that you're overlooking. If you look right now, I guarantee there is no crisis without a blessing. There's no challenge without an opportunity. There's no setback without a step forward. If you ask the right question and move forward. Right. But I found out I was in Japan doing a presentation there and filming for a movie there, and coming back to Los Angeles. When I got there, it went into lockdown. We had 4 seminars scheduled, Wednesday night, Thursday, and Saturday, Sunday. Immediately we went online. Literally in 24 hours, we were online. And we went to a different thing. And we went, okay, so now We'll hire new specialists.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put new people in place. We'll find a way of solving
Mm-hmm.
the problems and serve more people.
Mm-hmm.
And it took off.
Right.
So I've seen restaurants that went
Mm-hmm.
out there and started doing deliveries and took off.
And are phenomenal. Mm-hmm.
I saw people that I saw a lady who was a professional singer. She couldn't sing in live audiences anymore.
Mm-hmm.
She went online, started
Mm-hmm.
doing live performances
Right.
online. So it's not what happens to us, it's how we decide to perceive, decide,
Mm-hmm.
and act accordingly.
Right.
And the questions you want to ask is not how is specifically right now the way it is, not the way it used to be, not the way we fantasize it being, but how right now is the way it is helping me fulfill my mission on earth. If you ask that question and you don't go, I don't know, I can't find it, but
Not my
answer it
fault.
with accountability. Yeah. Answer it with accountability, and I guarantee you will find and discover new creative ideas that inspire you to do something even more amazing than what you would have done before.
Right. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Dr. Demartini, this is why I set a timer, because I know that we could go on forever because this is such a fascinating discussion. But there are people who are probably saying, I need help. I want to grow. I want, and so how, first of all, what are the services that you provide? And then how do they contact you?
The way to reach me is simply drdemartini.com. 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 And on there, they can go on and do the value determination process, which is a free service. It's private. Just please take the time to do it. It's worth doing, I promise you. But they can also go online to the media section and see hundreds. I've done 9,000 interviews, not 2,500. That's a bit outdated. 9,000 interviews. There's thousands of interviews. There's podcasts, radio, television, newspapers, magazines, all kind of stuff for education purposes. There's YouTube channels for education. We have live events around the world going on pretty well every single day, almost every week, particularly. And they can just browse it and let their hearts guide them where they go. There's books, there's products, there's all kind of things. Just let their heart be their guide. And there's no pressure to do anything. You can just take advantage of the free learning if you want, or you can go and buy something if you want.
Right.
But I'm an educator, and I'm interested in doing what I can to bring education to the world. And so that's it, drdemartini.com.
I love it. And I challenge people who are listening or watching, if you're going to go spend half hour on Facebook today, instead go to Dr. Demartini's site and maybe watch a podcast, maybe read a blog, order one of his books and read those. Or maybe it's not Dr. Demartini, but something to challenge, as you said, challenge your mind. And I promise, we will be better for it. Whoever is doing this will be better for it. Facebook's fun, but we need to, or whatever it is, watching TV, all of those things. Challenge your mind. That is what I love. And so that's so important. And again, it's drdemartini.com. Very simple, very easy.
Yes, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the Power Hour. And thank you for the questions. Well, and whoever is out there who may be listening, please know this. Give yourself permission to do something extraordinary on planet Earth. You're an extraordinary individual. Don't play small. Give yourself permission to shine, not shrink. Because the magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you may inject or impose on yourself. Don't live subordinating to the world around you, and don't compare yourself to others and put people on pedestals or pits. Put them in your heart. Realize that what you admire is something you have inside that you may not have honored. Bring it out, bring it to the world, and watch what happens when all of a sudden you honor yourself. The world also does.
I love it. I love that so much. I have been having an absolutely fascinating discussion with Dr. John Demartini. I can't wait to do it again because I think this message is something that everybody needs to hear. Pandemic, no pandemic, anything. This is just such important information. So we will chat again. But until then, I'm Deb Creer, and everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.